The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Read for LibriVox.org by David Barnes. Part 1. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. By thy long grey beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stopp'st thou me? The bridegroom's doors are open wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set, mayst hear the merry din. He holds him with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, grey-beard loon. Eftsoons his hand dropped he. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still, and listens like a 3 years' child. The mariner hath his will. The wedding guest sat on a stone, he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared. Merrily did we drop below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. The sun came up upon the left, out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. Higher and higher every day, till over the mast at noon. The wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. The bride hath paced into the hall, red as a rose is she, nodding their heads before she goes, the merry minstrelsy. The wedding guest he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his o'ertaking wings, and chased us south along. With sloping masts and dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward aye we fled. And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice mast high came floating by, as green as emerald. And through the drifts the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. It cracked and growled and roared and howled, like noises in a swound. At length did cross an albatross, thorough the fog it came, and as it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. It ate the food it ne'er had eat, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us through. And a good south wind sprung up behind, the albatross did follow, and every day, for food or play, came to the mariner's hollow. In mist or cloud, on mast or shroud, it perched for vespers 9, whiles all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. God save the ancient mariner from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why look'st thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. Part 2. The sun now rose upon the right, out of the sea came he, still hid in mist, and on the left went down into the sea. And the good south wind still blew behind, but no sweet bird did follow, nor any day for food or play came to the mariner's hollow. And I had done a hellish thing, and it would work 'em woe, for all averred I had killed the bird that made the breeze to blow. Ah, wretch, said they, the bird to slay that made the breeze to blow. Nor dim nor red, like God's own head, the glorious sun uprist. Then all averred I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. 'Twas right, said they, such birds to slay that bring the fog and mist. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. Down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad as sad could be. and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. All in a hot and copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast did stand, no bigger than the moon. Day after day, day after day we stuck, nor breath nor motions, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water, everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. The very deep did rot, O Christ, that ever this should be, yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. About, about, in reel and rout, the death fires danced at night. The water, like a witch's oils, burnt green and blue and white. And some in dreams assured were of the spirit that plagued us so. 9 fathom deep he had followed us from the land of mist and snow. And every tongue through utter drought was withered at the root. We could not speak, no more than if we had been choked with soot. Ah, well a day, what evil looks had I from old and young. Instead of the cross, the albatross about my neck was hung. Part 3. There passed a weary time. Each throat was parched, and glazed each eye. A weary time, how glazed each weary eye. When looking westward I beheld a something in the sky. At first it seemed a little speck, and then it seemed a mist. It moved, and looked at last a certain shape, I wist. A speck, a mist, a shape, I wist, and still it neared and neared. As if it dodged a water sprite, it plunged and tacked and veered. With throats unslaked, with black lips baked, we could not laugh nor wail. Through utter drought all dumb we stood. I bit my arm, I sucked the blood, and cried, "A sail! A sail!" With throats unslaked, with black lips baked, agape they heard me call. Gramercy! They for joy did grin, and all at once their breath drew in, as they were drinking all. "See, see!" I cried, "she tacks no more, hither to work us weal. Without a breeze, without a tide, she steadies with upright keel." The western wave was all aflame, the day was well nigh done. Almost upon the western wave rested the broad bright sun, when that strange shape drove suddenly betwixt us and the sun. And straight the sun was flecked with bars. Heaven's mother sent us grace, as if through a dungeon grate he peered, with broad and burning face. Alas, thought I, and my heart beat loud, how fast she nears and nears. Are those her sails that glance in the sun, like restless gossameres? And those her ribs through which the sun did peer, as through a grate? And is that woman all her crew? Is that a death? And are there two? Is death that woman's mate? Her lips were red, her looks were free, her locks were bright as gold, her skin was as white as leprosy. The nightmare, life in death was she, who thicks man's blood with cold. The naked hulk alongside came, and the twain were casting dice. "The game is won, I've won, I've won," quoth she, and whistles thrice. The sun's rim dips, the stars rush out, at one stride comes the dark, with far-heard whisper o'er the sea, off shot the spectre bark. We listened and looked sideways up, fear at my heart, as at a cup my life-blood seemed to sip. The stars were dim and thick the night, the steersman's face by his lamp gleamed white, from the sails the dew did drip, till clomb above the eastern bar the horned moon with one bright star within the nether tip. One after one by the star-dogged moon, too quick for groan or sigh, each turned his face with a ghastly pang, and cursed me with his eye. 4 times 50 living men, and I heard not sigh nor groan. With heavy thump, a lifeless lump, they dropped down one by one. The souls did from their bodies fly, they fled to bliss or woe, and every soul it passed me by like the whiz of my crossbow. Part 4. I fear thee, ancient mariner, I fear thy skinny hand, and thou art long and lank and brown, as is the ribbed sea sand. I fear thee, and thy glittering eye, and thy skinny hand so brown. Fear not, thou wedding guest, this body dropped not down. Alone, alone, all alone, alone on a wide, wide sea, and never a saint took pity on my soul in agony. The many men so beautiful, and they all dead did lie, and 1,000 slimy things lived on, and so did I. I looked upon the rotting sea, and drew my eyes away. I looked upon the rotting deck, and there the dead men lay. I looked to heaven, and tried to pray, but or ever a prayer had gushed, a wicked whisper came, and made my heart as dry as dust. I closed my lids, and kept them close, and the balls like pulses beat, for the sky and the sea, and the sea and the sky, lay like a load on my weary eye, and the dead were at my feet. The cold sweat melted from their limbs, nor rot nor reek did they. The look with which they looked on me had never passed away. An orphan's curse would drag to hell a spirit from on high, but oh, more horrible than that is the curse in a dead man's eye. 7 days, 7 nights I saw that curse, and yet I could not die. The moving moon went up the sky, and nowhere did abide. Softly she was going up, and a star or two beside. Her beams bemocked the sultry main, like April hoarfrost spread, and where the ship's huge shadow lay, the charmed water burnt alway a still and awful red. Beyond the shadow of the ship, I watched the water snakes. They moved in tracks of shining white, and when they reared, the elfish light fell off in hoary flakes. Within the shadow of the ship, I watched their rich attire, blue, glossy green, and velvet black. They coiled and swam, and every track was a flash of golden fire. O happy living things, no tongue their beauty might declare. A spring of love gushed from my heart, and I blessed them unaware. Sure my kind saint took pity on me, and I blessed them unaware. The self-same moment I could pray, and from my neck so free the albatross fell off and sank like lead into the sea. Part 5. O sleep, it is a gentle thing, beloved from pole to pole. To Mary Queen the praise be given, she sent the gentle sleep from heaven that slid into my soul. The silly buckets on the deck that had so long remained, I dreamt that they were filled with dew, and when I awoke it rained. My lips were wet, my throat was cold, my garments all were dank. Sure I had drunken in my dreams, and still my body drank. I moved, and could not feel my limbs. I was so light, almost I thought that I had died in sleep, and was a blessed ghost. And soon I heard a roaring wind. It did not come anear, but with its sound it shook the sails, that were so thin and sere. The upper air burst into life, and 100 fire flags sheen. To and fro they were hurried about, and to and fro and in and out the wan stars danced between. And the coming wind did roar more loud, and the sails did sigh like sedge, and the rain poured down from one black cloud. The moon was at its edge. The thick black cloud was cleft, and still the moon was at its side. Like water shot from some high crag, the lightning fell with never a jag, a river steep and wide. The loud wind never reached the ship, yet now the ship moved on. Beneath the lightning and the moon, the dead men gave a groan. They groaned, they stirred, they all uprose, nor spake nor moved their eyes. It had been strange, even in a dream, to have seen those dead men rise. The helmsman steered, the ship moved on, yet never a breeze up blew. The mariners all gan work the ropes, where they were wont to do. They raised their limbs like lifeless tools, we were a ghastly crew. The body of my brother's son stood by me, knee to knee. The body and I pulled at one rope, and he said naught to me. I fear the ancient mariner. Be calm, thou wedding guest, 'twas not those souls that fled in pain, which to their courses come again, but a troop of spirits blest. For when it dawned, they dropped their arms and clustered round the mast. Sweet sounds rose slowly through their mouths and from their bodies passed. Around, around flew each sweet sound, then darted to the sun. Slowly the sounds came back again, now mixed, now one by one. Sometimes, a dropping from the sky, I heard the skylark sing. Sometimes all little birds that are, how they seemed to fill the sea and air with their sweet jargoning. And now 'twas like all instruments, now like a lonely flute, and now it is an angel's song that makes the heavens be mute. It ceased, yet still the sails made on, a pleasant noise till noon, a noise like that of a hidden brook in the leafy month of June, that to the sleepy woods all night singeth a quiet tune. Till noon we quietly sailed on, yet never a breeze did breathe. Slowly and smoothly went the ship, moved onward from beneath. Under the keel 9 fathom deep, from the land of mist and snow, the spirit slid, and it was he that made the ship to go. The sails at noon left off their tune, and the ship stood still also. The sun, right up above the mast, had fixed her to the ocean, but in a minute she gan stir, with a short uneasy motion, backwards and forwards half her length, with a short uneasy motion. Then, like a pawing horse let go, she made a sudden bound. It flung the blood into my head, and I fell down in a swound. How long in that same fit I lay, I have not to declare, but ere my living life returned, I heard, and in my soul discerned, 2 voices in the air. Is it he, quoth one, is this the man, by him who died on cross? With his cruel bow he laid full low the harmless albatross. The spirit who bideth by himself in the land of mist and snow, he loved the bird that loved the man who shot him with his bow. The other was a softer voice, as soft as honey-dew. Quoth he, the man hath penance done, and penance more will do. Part 6. But tell me, speak again, thy soft response renewing, what makes that ship drive on so fast? What is the ocean doing? Still as a slave before his lord, the ocean hath no blast. His great bright eye most silently up to the moon is cast, if he may know which way to go, for she guides him smooth or grim. See, brother, see, how graciously she looketh down on him. But why drives on that ship so fast, without a wave or wind? The air is cut away before, and closes from behind. Fly, brother, fly, more high, or we shall be belated. For slow and slow that ship will go, when the mariner's trance is abated. I awoke, and we were sailing on, as in a gentle weather. 'Twas night, calm night, the moon was high, the dead men stood together. All stood together on the deck, for a charnel dungeon fitter. All fixed on me their stony eyes, that in the moon did glitter. The pang, the curse with which they died, had never passed away. I could not draw my eyes from theirs, nor turn them up to pray. And now this spell was snapped. Once more I viewed the ocean green, and looked far forth, yet little saw of what had else been seen. Like one that on a lonesome road doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turned round walks on, and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful fiend doth close behind him tread. But soon there breathed a wind on me, nor sound nor motion made. Its path was not upon the sea, in ripple or in shade. It raised my hair, it fanned my cheek, like a meadow gale of spring. It mingled strangely with my fears, yet it felt like a welcoming. Swiftly, swiftly flew the ship, yet she sailed softly too. Sweetly, sweetly blew the breeze, on me alone it blew. O dream of joy, is this indeed the lighthouse top I see? Is this the hill? Is this the kirk? Is this mine own country? We drifted o'er the harbour bar, and I with sobs did pray, O let me be awake, my God, or let me sleep alway. The harbour bay was clear as glass, so smoothly it was strewn, and on the bay the moonlight lay, and the shadow of the moon. The rock shone bright, the kirk no less, that stands above the rock. The moonlight steeped in silentness the steady weathercock, and the bay was white with silent light, till rising from the same full many shapes that shadows were in crimson colours came. A little distance from the prow those crimson shadows were. I turned my eyes upon the deck. O Christ, what saw I there? Each corse lay flat, lifeless and flat, and by the holy rood a man all light, a seraph man, on every corse there stood. This seraph band each waved his hand, it was a heavenly sight. They stood as signals to the land, each one a lovely light. This seraph band each waved his hand, no voice did they impart, no voice, but oh, the silence sank like music on my heart. But soon I heard the dash of oars, I heard the pilot's cheer. My head was turned perforce away, and I saw a boat appear. The pilot and the pilot's boy, I heard them coming fast. Dear Lord in heaven, it was a joy the dead men could not blast. I saw a third, I heard his voice, it is the hermit good. He singeth loud his godly hymns that he makes in the wood. He'll shrieve my soul, he'll wash away the albatross's blood. Part 7. This hermit good lives in that wood which slopes down to the sea. How loudly his sweet voice he rears! He loves to talk with marineers that come from a far country. He kneels at morn and noon and eve, he hath a cushion plump. It is the moss that wholly hides the rotted old oak stump. The skiff-boat neared, I heard them talk. Why, this is strange, I trow. Where are those lights, so many and fair, that signal made but now? Strange, by my faith, the hermit said, and they answered not our cheer. The planks looked warped, and see those sails, how thin they are and sere. I never saw aught like to them, unless perchance it were brown skeletons of leaves that lag my forest brook along, when the ivy tod is heavy with snow, and the owlet whoops to the wolf below that eats the she-wolf's young. Dear Lord, it hath a fiendish look, the pilot made reply. I am afeard. Push on, said the hermit cheerily. The boat came closer to the ship, but I nor spake nor stirred. The boat came close beneath the ship, and straight a sound was heard. Under the water it rumbled on, still louder and more dread. It reached the ship, it split the bay, the ship went down like lead. Stunned by that loud and dreadful sound, which sky and ocean smote, like one that hath been 7 days drowned, my body lay afloat. But swift as dreams myself I found within the pilot's boat. Upon the whirl where sank the ship, the boat spun round and round, and all was still, save that the hill was telling of the sound. I moved my lips. The pilot shrieked and fell down in a fit. The holy hermit raised his eyes and prayed where he did sit. I took the oars. The pilot's boy, who now doth crazy go, laughed loud and long, and all the while his eyes went to and fro. "Ha, ha!" quoth he, "full plain I see the devil knows how to row." And now, all in my own country, I stood on the firm land. The hermit stepped forth from the boat, and scarcely he could stand. "O shrieve me, holy man!" The hermit crossed his brow. "Say quick," quoth he, "I bid thee say, what manner of man art thou?" Forthwith this frame of mine was wrenched with a woeful agony, which forced me to begin my tale, and then it left me free. Since then, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns, until my ghastly tale is told, this heart within me burns. I pass like night from land to land. I have strange power of speech. That moment that his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. To him my tale I teach. What loud uproar bursts from that door? The wedding guests are there, and in the garden bower the bride and bridesmaids singing are. And hark, the little vesper bell that biddeth me to prayer. O wedding guest, this soul hath been alone on a wide, wide sea. So lonely 'twas that God himself scarce seemed there to be. O sweeter than the marriage feast, 'tis sweeter far to me, to walk together to the kirk with a goodly company. To walk together to the kirk, and all together pray, while each to his great Father bends, old men and babes and loving friends, and youths and maidens gay. Farewell, farewell, but this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest, he prayeth well who loveth well both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best all things both great and small, for the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. The mariner, whose eye is bright, whose beard with age is hoar, is gone, and now the wedding guest turned from the bridegroom's door. He went like one that hath been stunned, and is of sense forlorn. A sadder and a wiser man, he rose the morrow morn. End of The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. This recording is in the public domain.
and Brahma by Henry Adams. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Davis Drake. The Buddha, known to men by many names, Siddhartha, Sakya, Muni, Blessed One, sat in the forest, as had been his wont these many years since he attained perfection. In silent thought, abstraction, purity, his eyes fixed on the lotus in his hand. He meditated on the perfect life, while his disciples, sitting round him, waited his words of teaching, every syllable more and more precious as the Master gently warned them how near was come his day of parting. In silence, as the Master gave example, they meditated on the path and law, till one, Malunka, looking up and speaking, said to the Buddha, "O omniscient one, teach us, if such be in the perfect way, whether the world exists eternally." The Buddha made no answer, and in silence all the disciples bent their contemplation on the perfection of the Eightfold Way, until Malunka spoke again. "O Master, what answer shall we offer to the Brahmin who asks us if our Master holds the world to be, or not, eternal?" Still the Buddha sat, as though he heard not, contemplating the pure white lotus in his sacred hand, till a third time Malunka questioned him. "Lord of the world, we know not what we ask. We fear to teach what thou hast not made pure." Then gently, still in silence, lost in thought, the Buddha raised the lotus in his hand. His eyes bent downward, fixed upon the flower. No more. A moment so he held it only. Then his hand sank into its former rest. Long the disciples pondered on the lesson. Much they discussed its mystery and meaning, each finding something he could make his own, some hope or danger in the noble way, some guide or warning to the perfect life. Among them sat the last of the disciples, listening and pondering silently and still. And when the scholars found no certain meaning in Buddha's answer to Malunka's prayer, the young man pondered. "I will seek my father, the wisest man of all men in the world, and he with one word will reveal the secret, and make me in an instant reach the light which these in many years had not attained, though guided by the Buddha and the law." So the boy sought his father, an old man famous for human wisdom, subtle counsel, boldness in action, recklessness in war, Gautama's friend, the Raja of Magadha. No follower of Buddha, but a Brahmin, devoted first to Vishnu, then to caste. He made no sign of anger or remonstrance when his son left him at Siddhartha's bidding to take the vows of poverty and prayer. If Vishnu willed it, let his will be done. The Raja sat at evening in his palace, deep in solitude of his own thought, when silently the young man entered, crouched at a distance, waiting till his father should give some sign of favor. Then he spoke. "Father, you are wise. I come to ask you a secret meaning none of us can read. For when Malunka 3 times asked the Master whether the world was or was not eternal, Siddhartha for a moment lifted up the lotus and kept silence." The Raja pondered long, with darkened features, as though in doubt increasing. Then he said, "Reflect, my son. The Master had not meant this last and deepest lesson to be learned from any but himself, by any means but silent thought, abstraction, purity, the living spirit of his Eightfold Way, the jewel of his lotus. Least of all had he, whose first and easiest lesson taught the nothingness of caste, intended you to seek out me, a warrior, Kshatriya, knowing no duties but to caste and sword, to teach the Buddha and unveil his shrine. My teaching is not his, mine not his way. You quit your master when you question me." Silent they sat, and long. Then slowly spoke the younger. "Father, you are wise. I must have wisdom." "Not so, my son. Old men are often fools, but young men always. Your duty is to act. Leave thought to us." The youngest sat in patience, eyes cast down, voice low and gentle as the master taught, but still repeated the same prayer. "You are wise. I must have wisdom. Life for me is thought, but were it action, how in youth or age can man act wisely, leaving thought aside?" The Rajah made no answer, but almost his mouth seemed curving to a sudden smile that hardened to a frown. And then he spoke. "If Vishnu wills it, let his will be done. The child sees jewels on his father's sword, and cries until he gets it for a plaything. He cannot use it but to wound himself. Its perfect workmanship wakes no delight. Its jewels are for him but common glass. The sword means nothing that the child can know. But when at last the child has grown to man, has learned the beauty of the weapon's art, and proved its purpose on the necks of men, still must he tell himself, as I tell you, 'Use it, but ask no questions. Think not, strike.' This counsel you reject, for you want wisdom. So be it. I swear to you in truth that all my wisdom lies in these 3 words. You ask Gautama's meaning, for you know that since his birth his thoughts and acts alike have been to me a mirror, clearer far than to himself, for no man sees himself. With the solemnity of youth you ask of me, on whom the charm of childhood still works greater miracles than magicians know, to tell, as though it were a juggler's trick, the secret meaning which himself but now could tell you only by a mystic sign, the symbol of a symbol. So far thought, so vague and vast and intricate its scope. And I, whom you compel to speak for him, must give his thoughts through mine, for his passes your powers, yours and all your school. Your master Shakya, Muni, Gautama, is, like myself and you, a Kshatriya, and in our youths we both, like you, rebelled against the priesthood and their laws of caste. We sought new paths, desperate to find escape out of the jungle that the priests had made. Gautama found a path. You follow it. I found none, and I stay here in the jungle, content to tolerate what I cannot mend. I blame not him or you, but would you know Gautama's meaning, you must fathom mine. He failed to cope with life, renounced its cares, fled to the forest, and attained the end, reaching the end by sacrificing life. You know both end and path. You too attain. I could not. 10 years older, I, already trained to rule, to fight, to scheme, to strive for objects that I dared not tell, not for myself alone, but for us all. Had I thrown down my sword and fled my throne, not all the hermits, priests, and saints of Ind, Buddhist or Brahmin, could have saved our heads from rolling in the dirt. For Rajas know a quicker than the eightfold noble way to help their scholars to attain the end. Renounce I could not, and could not reform. How could I battle with the Brahmin priests, or free the people from the yoke of caste, when, with the utmost aid that priests could give, and willing service from each caste in turn, I saved but barely both my throne and them. So came it that our paths were separate, and his led up to so supreme a height that from its summit he can now look down and see where still the jungle stifles me. Yet was our starting point the same, and though we now seem worlds apart, hold fast to this, the starting point must be the end point too. You know the Veda, and need not be taught, the first and last idea of all true knowledge. One single spirit from which all things spring, one thought containing all thoughts possible, not merely those that we in our thin reason hold to be true, but all their opposites. For Brahma is beginning, middle, end, matter and mind, time, space, form, life and death. The universal has no time limit. Thought traveling in constant circles round and round must ever pass through endless contradictions, returning on itself at last, till lost in silence. This is the Veda, as you know, the alphabet of all philosophy. For he who cannot or dares not grasp and follow this necessity of Brahma is but a fool and weakling, and must perish among the follies of his own reflection. Your master, you and I, and all wise men, have one sole purpose which we never lose. Through different paths we each seek to attain, sooner or later, as your paths allow, a perfect union with the single spirit. Gautama's way is best, but all are good. He breaks a path at once to which he seeks. By silence and absorption he unites his soul with the great soul from which it started. But we, who cannot fly the world, must seek to live two separate lives, one in the world which we must ever seem to treat as real, the other in ourselves, behind a veil, not to be raised without disturbing both. The Raja is an instrument of Brahma, no more, no less than sunshine, lightning, rain. And when he meets resistance in his path, and when his sword falls on a victim's neck, it strikes as strikes the lightning, as it must, rending its way through darkness to the point it needs must seek, by no choice of its own. Thus, in the life of the ruler, warrior, master, the wise man knows his wisdom has no place. And when most wise, we act by rule and law, talk to conceal our thought, and think only within the range of daily need, ruling our subjects while ourselves rebel, death always on our lips and in our act. This is the jungle in which we must stay, according to the teachings of the Master. Never can we attain the perfect life. Yet in this world of selfishness and striving, the wise man lives as deeply sunk in silence, as conscious of the perfect life he covets, as the recluse in his forest shadows, as any yogi in his mystic trances. We need no noble way to teach us freedom amid the clamor of a world of slaves. We need no lotus to love purity where life is else corruption. So read Siddhartha's secret. He has taught a certain pathway to attain the end, and best and simplest yet devised by man. Yet still so hard that every energy must be devoted to its sacred law. Then, when Malunka turns to ask for knowledge, would seek what lies beyond the path he teaches, what distant horizon transcends his own, he bids you look in silence on the lotus. For you, he means no more. For me, this meaning points back and forward to that common goal from which all paths diverge, to which all paths must tend. Brahma, the only truth. Gautama tells me my way too is good. Life, time, space, thought, the world, the universe, end where they first begin, in one sole thought of purity in silence. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Crossing Brooklyn Ferry by Walt Whitman. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Davis Drake. 1. Flood tide below me, I see you face to face. Clouds of the west, sun there half an hour high, I see you also face to face. Crowds of men and women attired in the usual costumes, how curious you are to me. On the ferry boats, the hundreds and hundreds that cross, returning home, are more curious to me than you suppose. And you that shall cross from shore to shore years hence are more to me, and more in my meditations than you might suppose. 2. The impalpable sustenance of me from all things at all hours of the day. The simple, compact, well-joined scheme, myself disintegrated, every one disintegrated, yet part of the scene. The similitudes of the past and those of the future, the glories strung like beads on my smallest sights and hearings, on the walk in the street and the passage over the river. The current rushing so swiftly and swimming with me far away. The others that are to follow me, the ties between me and them, the certainty of others, the life, love, sight, hearing of others. Others will enter the gates of the ferry and cross from shore to shore. Others will watch the run of the flood tide. Others will see the shipping of Manhattan north and west, and the heights of Brooklyn to the south and east. Others will see the islands large and small. 50 years hence others will see them as they cross, the sun half an hour high. 100 years hence, or even many 100 years hence, others will see them, will enjoy the sunset, the pouring in of the flood tide, the falling back to the sea of the ebb tide. 3. It avails not, time nor place, distance avails not. I am with you, you men and women of a generation, of ever so many generations hence. Just as you feel when you look on the river and sky, so I felt. Just as any of you is one of a living crowd, I was one of a crowd. Just as you are refreshed by the gladness of the river and the bright flow, I was refreshed. Just as you stand and lean on the rail, yet hurry with the swift current, I stood, yet was hurried. Just as you look at the numberless masts of ships and the thick-stemmed pipes of steamboats, I looked. I, too, many and many a time crossed the river of old, watched the 12th-month seagulls, saw them high in the air, floating with motionless wing, oscillating their bodies, saw how the glistening yellow lit up parts of their bodies and left the rest in strong shadow, saw the slow wheeling circles and the gradual edging towards the south, saw the reflection of the summer sky in the water, had my eyes dazzled by the shimmering track of beams, looked at the fine centrifugal spokes of light round the shape of my head in the sunlit water, looked on the haze on the hills southward and southwestward, looked at the vapor as it flew in fleeces tinged with violet, looked towards the lower bay to notice the vessels arriving, saw their approach, saw aboard those that were near me, saw the white sails of schooners and sloops, saw the ships at anchor, the sailors at work in the rigging or out astride the spars, the round masts, the swinging motion of the hulls, the slender serpentined pennants, the large and small steamers in motion, the pilots in their pilot-houses, the white wake left by the passage, the quick tremulous whirl of the wheels, the flags of all nations, the falling of them at sunset, the scalloped-edged waves in the twilight, the laden cups, the frolicsome crests and glistening, the stretch afar growing dimmer and dimmer, the grey walls of the granite storehouses by the docks, on the river the shadowy group, the big steam-tug closely flanked on each side by the barges, the hay-boat, the belated lighter, on the neighbouring shore the fires from the foundry chimneys burning high and glaring into the night, casting their flicker of black, contrasted with wild red and yellow light over the tops of houses, and down into the clefts of streets. 4. These and all else were to me the same as they are to you. I loved well those cities, loved well the stately and rapid river. The men and women I saw were all near to me, others the same, others who looked back on me because I looked forward to them. The time will come, though I stop here today and tonight. 5. What is it, then, between us? What is the count of the scores or hundreds of years between us? Whatever it is, it avails not. Distance avails not, and place avails not. I too lived. Brooklyn of ample hills was mine. I too walked the streets of Manhattan Island, and bathed in the waters around it. I too felt the curious, abrupt questioning stir within me. In the day, among crowds of people, sometimes they came upon me. In my walks home late at night, or as I lay in my bed, they came upon me. I too had been struck from the float forever held in solution. I too had received identity by my body. That I was, I knew was my body, and what I should be, I knew I should be of my body. 6. It is not upon you alone the dark patches fall. The dark threw its patches down upon me also. The best I had done seemed to me blank and suspicious. My great thoughts, as I supposed them, were they not in reality meagre? Nor is it you alone who knows what it is to be evil. I am he who knew what it was to be evil. I too knotted the old knot of contrariety, blabbed, blushed, resented, lied, stole, grudged, had guile, anger, lust, hot wishes I dare not speak, was wayward, vain, greedy, shallow, shy, cowardly, malignant, the wolf, the snake, the hog not wanting in me. The cheating look, the frivolous word, the adulterous wish, not wanting. Refusals, hates, postponements, meanness, laziness, none of these wanting. Was one with the rest, the days and haps of the rest. Was called by my nighest name by clear loud voices of young men as they saw me approaching or passing, felt their arms on my neck as I stood, or the negligent leaning of their flesh against me as I sat, saw many I loved in the street or ferry-boat or public assembly, yet never told them a word. lived the same life with the rest, the same old laughing, gnawing, sleeping, played the part that still looks back on the actor or actress. The same old role, the role that is what we make it, as great as we like, or as small as we like, or both great and small. 7. Closer yet I approach you. What thought you have of me now, I had as much of you. I laid in my stores in advance. I considered long and seriously of you before you were born. Who was to know what should come home to me? Who knows? But I am enjoying this. Who knows for all the distance? But I am as good as looking at you now, for all you cannot see me. 8. Ah, what could ever be more stately and admirable to me than mast-hemmed Manhattan, river and sunset, and scallop-edged waves of flood-tide, the seagulls oscillating their bodies, the hay-boat in the twilight, and the belighted lighter? What gods can exceed these that clasp me by the hand, and with voices I love call me promptly and loudly by my nighest name as I approach? What is more subtle than that which ties me to the woman or man that looks in my face, which fuses me into you now, and pours my meaning into you? We understand then, do we not? What I promised without mentioning it, have you not accepted? What the study could not teach, what the preaching could not accomplish, is accomplished, is it not? 9. Flow on, river. Flow with the flood tide and ebb with the ebb tide. Frolic on, crested and scallop-edged waves. Gorgeous clouds of the sunset, drench with your splendor me, or the men and women generations after me. Cross from shore to shore, countless crowds of passengers. Stand up, tall masts of Manhattan. Stand up, beautiful hills of Brooklyn. Throb, baffled and curious brain. Throw out questions and answers. Suspend here and everywhere, eternal float of solution. Gaze, loving and thirsting eyes, in the house or street or public assembly. Sound out, voices of young men. Loudly and musically call me by my nighest name. Live, old life. Play the part that looks back on the actor or actress. Play the old role, the role that is great or small according as one makes it. Consider, you who peruse me, whether I may not in unknown ways be looking upon you. Be firm, rail over the river, to support those who lean idly, yet haste with the hasting current. Fly on, sea-birds! Fly sideways or wheel in large circles high in the air. Receive the summer sky, you water, faithfully hold it till all downcast eyes have time to take it from you. Diverge, fine spokes of light, from the shape of my head or anyone's head in the sunlit water. Come on, ships from the lower bay, pass up or down white-sailed schooners, sloops, lighters. Flaunt away, flags of all nations. Be duly lowered at sunset. Burn high your fires, foundry chimneys. Cast black shadows at nightfall. Cast red and yellow light over the tops of the houses. Appearances, now or henceforth, indicate what you are. You necessary film, continue to envelop the soul. About my body for me, and your body for you, be hung out divinest aromas. Thrive, cities! Bring your freight, bring your shows, ample and sufficient rivers. Expand, being than which none else is perhaps more spiritual. Keep your places, objects that which none else is more lasting. You have waited. You always wait, you dumb, beautiful ministers. We receive you with free sense at last, and are insatiate henceforward. Not you any more shall be able to foil us, or withhold yourselves from us. We use you and do not cast you aside. We plant you permanently within us. We fathom not you, we love you. There is perfection in you also. You furnish your parts towards eternity. Great or small, you furnish your parts toward the soul. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fidelity by William Wordsworth. Read for LibriVox.org by Reynard. Fidelity. Composed 1805. Published 1807. The young man whose death gave occasion to this poem was named Charles Gough, and had come early in the spring to Patterdale for the sake of angling. While attempting to cross over Helvellyn to Grasmere, he slipped from a steep part of the rock where the ice was not thawed, and perished. His body was discovered as described in this poem. Walter Scott heard of the accident, and both he and I, without either of us knowing that the other had taken up the subject, each wrote a poem in admiration of the dog's fidelity. His contains a most beautiful stanza. How long didst thou think that his silence was slumber? When the wind waved his garment, how oft didst thou start? I will add that the sentiment in the last 4 lines of the stanza of my verses was uttered by a shepherd with such exactness that a traveller, who afterwards reported his account in print, was induced to question the man whether he had read them, which he had not. One of the poems of sentiment and reflection. Editor. A barking sound the shepherd hears, a cry as of a dog or fox. He halts and searches with his eyes among the scattered rocks, and now at distance can discern a stirring in a brake of fern, and instantly a dog is seen, glancing through that covert green. The dog is not of mountain breed, its motions too are wild and shy, with something, as the shepherd thinks, unusual in its cry. Nor is there any one in sight, all round in hollow or on height, nor shout nor whistle strikes his ear. What is the creature doing here? It was a cove, a huge recess, that keeps till June December's snow, a lofty precipice in front, a silent tarn below. Far in the bosom of Helvellyn, remote from public road or dwelling, pathway or cultivated land, from trace of human foot or hand, there something doth a leaping fish send through the tarn a lonely cheer. The crags repeat the raven's croak in symphony austere. Thither the rainbow comes, the cloud, and mists that spread the flying shroud, and sunbeams and the sounding blast, that if it could would hurry past, but that enormous barrier holds it fast. Not free from boding thoughts, awhile, the shepherd stood, then makes his way, o'er rocks and stones, following the dog as quickly as he may. Nor far had gone before he found a human skeleton on the ground. The appalled discoverer with a sigh looks round to learn the history. From those abrupt and perilous rocks the man had fallen, that place of fear. At length upon the shepherd's mind it breaks, and all is clear. He instantly recalled the name, and who he was, and whence he came. Remembered too the very day on which the traveller passed this way. But hear a wonder, for whose sake this lamentable tale I tell. A lasting monument of words, this wonder merits well. The dog, which still was hovering nigh, repeating the same timid cry, this dog had been through 3 months' space a dweller in that savage place. Yes, proof was plain that, since the day when this ill-fated traveller died, the dog had watched about the spot, or by his master's side. How nourished here through such long time, he knows who gave that love sublime, and gave that strength of feeling great, above all human estimate. End of Fidelity by William Wordsworth. This recording is in the public domain.
Ode, Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. Read for LibriVox by Elizabeth Klett. There was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth, and every common sight, to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn wheresoe'er I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen, I now can see no more. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. The moon doth with delight look round her when the heavens are bare. Waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. The sunshine is a glorious birth. But yet I know, where'er I go, that there hath passed away a glory from the earth. Now, while the birds sing a joyous song, and while the young lambs bound as to the Tabor's sound, to me alone there came a thought of grief. A timely utterance gave that thought relief, and I again am strong. The cataracts blow their trumpets from the steep. No more shall grief of mine the season wrong. I hear the echoes through the mountains throng. The winds come to me from the fields of sleep, and all the earth is gay. Land and sea give themselves up to jollity, and with the heart of May doth every beast keep holiday. Thou child of joy, shout round me, let me hear thy shouts, thou happy shepherd boy. Ye blessed creatures, I have heard the call ye to each other make. I see the heavens laugh with you in your jubilee. My heart is at your festival, my head hath its coronal. The fullness of your bliss I feel it all. O evil day, if I were sullen, while earth herself is adorning this sweet May morning, and the children are culling on every side in 1,000 valleys far and wide fresh flowers, while the sun shines warm and the babe leaps up on his mother's arm, I hear, with joy I hear. But there's a tree, of many, one, a single field which I have looked upon. Both of them speak of something that is gone. The pansy at my feet doth the same tale repeat. Whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream? Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. Heaven lies about us in our infancy. Shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. But he beholds the light, and whence it flows, he sees it in his joy. The youth, who daily farther from the east must travel, still is nature's priest, and by the visions splendid is on his way attended. At length the man perceives it die away, and fade into the light of common day. Earth fills her lap with pleasures of her own, yearnings she hath in her own natural kind, and even with something of a mother's mind, and no unworthy aim, the homely nurse doth all she can to make her foster child, her inmate man, forget the glories he hath known, and that imperial palace whence he came. Behold the child among his new-born blisses, a 6 years' darling of a pygmy size. See, where mid work of his own hand he lies, fretted by sallies of his mother's kisses, with light upon him from his father's eyes. See at his feet some little plan or chart, some fragment from his dream of human life, shaped by himself with newly learned art, a wedding or a festival, a mourning or a funeral. And this hath now his heart, and unto this he frames his song. Then will he fit his tongue to dialogues of business, love, or strife. But it will not be long ere this be thrown aside, and with new joy and pride the little actor cons another part, filling from time to time his humorous stage with all the persons down to palsied age that life brings with her in her equipage, as if his whole vocation were endless imitation. Thou, whose exterior semblance doth belie thy soul's immensity, thou best philosopher, who yet doth keep thy heritage, thou eye among the blind, that deaf and silent reads the eternal deep, haunted for ever by the eternal mind, mighty prophet, seer blessed, on whom those truths do rest which we are toiling all our lives to find, in darkness lost, the darkness of the grave. Thou, over whom thy immortality broods like the day, a master or a slave, a presence which is not to be put by, to whom the grave is but a lonely bed without the sense or sight of day or the warm light, a place of thought where we in waiting lie. Thou little child, yet glorious in the might of heaven-born freedom on thy being's height, why with such earnest pains dost thou provoke the years to bring the inevitable yoke, thus blindly with thy blessedness at strife? Full soon thy soul shall have her earthly freight, and custom lie upon thee with a weight heavy as frost and deep almost as life. O joy, that in our embers is something that doth live, that nature yet remembers what was so fugitive. The thought of our past years in me doth breed perpetual benediction, not indeed for that which is most worthy to be blessed, delight and liberty, the simple creed of childhood, whether busy or at rest, with new-fledged hope still fluttering in his breast. Not for these I raise the song of thanks and praise, but for those obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized, high instincts before which our mortal nature did tremble like a guilty thing surprised. But for those first affections, those shadowy recollections, which, be they what they may, are yet the fountain light of all our day, are yet a master light of all our seeing, uphold us, cherish, and have power to make our noisy years seem moments in the being of the eternal silence, truths that wake to perish never, which neither listlessness, nor mad endeavor, nor man, nor boy, nor all that is at enmity with joy, can utterly abolish or destroy. Hence, in a season of calm weather, though inland far we be, our souls have sight of that immortal sea which brought us hither, can in a moment travel thither, and see the children sport upon the shore, and hear the mighty waters rolling evermore. Then sing, ye birds, sing, sing a joyous song, and let the young lambs bound as to the Tabor's sound. We in thought will join your throng, ye that pipe and ye that play, ye that through your hearts today feel the gladness of the May. What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in years that bring the philosophic mind. And oh, ye fountains, meadows, hills, and groves, forebode not any severing of our loves. Yet in my heart of hearts I feel your might. I only have relinquished one delight, to live beneath your more habitual sway. I love the brooks which down their channels fret, even more than when I tripped lightly as they. The innocent brightness of a new-born day is lovely yet. The clouds that gather round the setting sun do take a sober coloring from an eye that hath kept watch o'er man's mortality. Another race hath been, and other palms are won. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears, to me the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, read for LibriVox.org by Clarica. S'io credesse che mia riposta fosse a persona che mai tornasse al mondo, ma perch'io che gia mai di questo fondo non torno vivo alcun, s'io do il vero, senza tema di infamia ti rispondo. Let us go, then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent, to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back on the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed there will be time to wonder. Do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair, with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin! My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin! Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase, and when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways, and how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume, and how should I begin? Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets, and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves, leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws, scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor, here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat, and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worth while to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all? If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. And would it have been worth it, after all? Would it have been worth while, after the sunsets and dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this, and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean. But as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen. Would it have been worth while, if one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl, and turning toward the window, should say, "That is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all." No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost, at times, the fool. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea-girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Prothalamion by Edmund Spenser. Read for LibriVox.org by David Barnes and Corrie Samuel on the 5th of May 2007 as part of the LibriVox Global Gathering. Prothalamion by Edmund Spenser. Calm was the day, and through the trembling air sweet-breathing Zephyrus did softly play a gentle spirit, that lightly did delay hot Titan's beams, which then did glister fair, when I, whom sullen care through discontent of my long fruitless stay in prince's court, and expectation vain of idle hopes, which still do fly away like empty shadows, did afflict my brain, walked forth to ease my pain along the shore of silver streaming Thames, whose rutty bank, the which his river hems, was painted all with variable flowers, and all the meads adorned with dainty gems, fit to deck maidens' bowers, and crown their paramours against the bridal day, which is not long. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song.
There in a meadow, by the river's side, a flock of nymphs I chanced to espy, all lovely daughters of the flood thereby, with goodly greenish locks, all loose untied, as each had been a bride. And each one had a little wicker basket, made of fine twigs entrailed curiously, in which they gathered flowers to fill their flasket, and with fine fingers cropped full feteously the tender stalks on high. Of every sort which in that meadow grew they gathered some, the violet pallid blue, the little daisy that at evening closes, the virgin lily, and the primrose true, with store of vermeil roses, to deck their bridegroom's poses, against the bridal day, which was not long. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song.
With that I saw two swans of goodly hue come softly swimming down along the lea. Two fairer birds I yet did never see. The snow which doth the top of Pindus strew did never whiter show. Nor Jove himself, when he a swan would be, for love of Leda whiter did appear. Yet Leda was, they say, as white as he, yet not so white as these, nor nothing near. So purely white they were, that even the gentle stream, the which them bare, seemed foul to them, and bade his billows spare to wet their silken feathers, lest they might soil their fair plumes with water not so fair, and mar their beauties bright, that shone as heaven's light, against their bridal day, which was not long. Sweet Thames, run softly, till I end my song.
Eftsoons the nymphs, which now had flowers their fill, ran in all haste to see that silver brood, as they came floating on the crystal flood, whom when they saw, they stood amazed still, their wondering eyes to fill. Them seemed they never saw a sight so fair, of fowls so lovely, that they sure did deem them heavenly born, or to be that same pair which through the sky draw Venus' silver team. For sure they did not seem to be begot of any earthly seed, but rather angels, or of angels' breed. Yet were they bred of summer's heat, they say, in sweetest season, when each flower and weed the earth did fresh array, so fresh they seemed as day, even as their bridal day, which was not long. Sweet Thames, run softly, till I end my song.
Then forth they all out of their baskets drew great store of flowers, the honour of the field, that to the sense did fragrant odours yield, all which upon those goodly birds they threw, and all the waves did strew, that like old Peneus waters they did seem, when down along by pleasant Tempe's shore, scattered with flowers, through Thessaly they stream, that they appear through lilies' plenteous store, like a bride's chamber floor. Two of those nymphs meanwhile 2 garlands bound of freshest flowers which in that mead they found, the which presenting all in trim array, their snowy foreheads therewithal they crowned, whilst one did sing this lay, prepared against that day, against their bridal day, which was not long. Sweet Thames, run softly, till I end my song.
Ye gentle birds, the world's fair ornament, and heaven's glory, whom this happy hour doth lead unto your lover's blissful bower, joy may you have, and gentle heart's content of your love's complement. And let fair Venus, that is queen of love, with her heart-quelling sun upon you smile, whose smile, they say, hath virtue to remove all love's dislike, and friendship's faulty guile, for ever to assoil. Let endless peace your steadfast hearts accord, and blessed plenty wait upon your board, and let your bed with pleasures chaste abound, that fruitful issue may to you afford, which may your foes confound, and make your joys redound upon your bridal day, which is not long. Sweet Thames, run softly, till I end my song.
So ended she, and all the rest around to her redoubled that her undersong, which said their bridal day should not be long, and gentle echo from the neighbour ground their accents did resound. So forth those joyous birds did pass along, adown the lea, that to them murmured low, as he would speak that he lacked a tongue, yet did by signs his glad affection show, making his stream run slow. And all the fowl, which in his flood did dwell, gan flock about these twain that did excel the rest, so far as Cynthia doth shend the lesser stars. So they, enranged well, did on those two attend, and their best service lend, against their wedding day, which was not long. Sweet Thames, run softly, till I end my song.
At length they all to merry London came, to merry London, my most kindly nurse, that to me gave this life's first native source. Though from another place I take my name, a house of ancient fame. There, when they came, whereas those bricky towers, the which on Thames' broad-aged back do ride, where now the studious lawyers have their bowers, there whilome wont the Templar knights to bide, till they decayed through pride. Next whereunto there stands a stately place, where oft I gained gifts and goodly grace of that great lord which therein wont to dwell, whose want too well now feels my friendless case. But ah! here fits not well old woes, but joys to tell against the bridal day, which is not long. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song.
Yet therein now doth lodge a noble peer, great England's glory and the world's wide wonder, whose dreadful name late through all Spain did thunder, and Hercules' 2 pillars standing near did make to quake and fear. Fair branch of honour, flower of chivalry, that fillest England with thy triumph's fame, joy have thou of thy noble victory, and endless happiness of thine own name that promiseth the same. That through thy prowess and victorious arms thy country may be free from foreign harms, and great Eliza's glorious name may ring through all the world, filled with thy wide alarms, which some brave muse may sing to ages following, upon the bridal day, which is not long. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song.
From those high towers this noble lord issuing, like radiant Hesper, when his golden hair in th'ocean billows he hath bathed fair, descended to the river's open viewing, with a great train ensuing. Above the rest were goodly to be seen 2 gentle knights of lovely face and feature, beseeming well the bower of any queen, with gifts of wit and ornaments of nature, fit for so goodly stature, that like the twins of Jove they seemed in sight, which deck the baldric of the heavens bright. They too, forth pacing to the river's side, received those 2 fair brides, their love's delight, which, at the appointed tide, each one did make his bride, against their bridal day, which is not long. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Servant to Servants by Robert Frost. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Bobby. I didn't make you know how glad I was to have you come and camp here on our land. I promised myself to get down some day and see the way you lived, but I don't know. With a house full of hungry men to feed, I guess you'd find... It seems to me I can't express my feelings any more than I can raise my voice or want to lift my hand. Oh, I can lift it when I have to. Did you ever feel so? I hope you never. It's got so I don't even know for sure whether I am glad, sorry, or anything. There's nothing but a voice-like left inside that seems to tell me how I ought to feel and would feel if I wasn't all gone wrong. You take the lake. I look and look at it. I see it's a fair, pretty sheet of water. I stand and make myself repeat out loud the advantages it has, so long and narrow, like a deep piece of some old running river cut short off at both ends. It lies 5 miles straight away through the mountain notch from the sink window where I wash the plates, and all our storms come up toward the house, drawing the slow waves whiter and whiter and whiter. It took my mind off doughnuts and soda biscuit to step outdoors and take the water dazzle a sunny morning, or take the rising wind about my face and body through my wrapper, when a storm threatened from the dragon's den, and a cold chill shivered across the lake. I see it's a fair, pretty sheet of water, our Willoughby. How did you hear of it? I expect, though, everyone's heard of it. In a book about ferns, listen to that. You let things more like feathers regulate your going and coming. And you like it here? I can see how you might. But I don't know. It would be different if more people came, for then there would be business. As it is, the cottages Len built, sometimes we rent them, sometimes we don't. We've a good piece of shore that ought to be worth something, and may yet. But I don't count on it as much as Len. He looks on the bright side of everything, including me. He thinks I'll be all right with doctoring, but it's not medicine. Low is the only doctor's dared to say so. It's rest I want. There, I have said it out. From cooking meals for hungry hired men and washing dishes after them, from doing things over and over that just won't stay done. By good rights I ought not to have so much put on me, but there seems no other way. Len says one steady pull more ought to do it. He says the best way out is always through. And I agree to that, or in so far as that I can see no way out but through, leastways for me, and then they'll be convinced. It's not that Len don't want the best for me. It was his plan our moving over in beside the lake from where that day I showed you we used to live, 10 miles from anywhere. We didn't change without some sacrifice, but Len went at it to make up the loss. His work's a man's, of course, from sun to sun, but he works when he works as hard as I do, though there's small profit in comparisons. Women and men will make them all the same. But work ain't all. Len undertakes too much. He's into everything in town. This year it's highways, and he's got too many men around him to look after that make waste. They take advantage of him shamefully, and proud, too, of themselves for doing so. We have 4 here to board, great good-for-nothings, sprawling about the kitchen with their talk while I fry their bacon. Much they care. No more put out in what they do or say than if I wasn't in the room at all. Coming and going all the time they are. I don't learn what their names are, let alone their characters, or whether they are safe to have inside the house with doors unlocked. I'm not afraid of them, though, if they're not afraid of me. There's 2 can play at that. I have my fancies. It runs in the family. My father's brother wasn't right. They kept him locked up for years back there at the old farm. I've been away once. Yes, I've been away. The state asylum. I was prejudiced. I wouldn't have sent any one of mine there. You know the old idea. The only asylum was the poorhouse, and those who could afford, rather than send their folks to such a place, kept them at home. And it does seem more human. But it's not so. The place is the asylum. There they have every means proper to do with, and you aren't darkening other people's lives. Worse than no good to them, and they no good to you in your condition. You can't know affection or the want of it in that state. I've heard too much of the old-fashioned way. My father's brother, he went mad quite young. Some thought he had been bitten by a dog, because his violence took the form of carrying his pillow in his teeth. But it's more likely he was crossed in love, or so the story goes. It was some girl. Anyway, all he talked about was love. They soon saw he would do someone a mischief if he wa'n't kept strict watch of, and it ended in father's building him a sort of cage, or room within a room, of hickory poles like stanchions in the barn, from floor to ceiling, a narrow passage all the way round. Anything they put in for furniture he'd tear to pieces, even a bed to lie on. So they made the place comfortable with straw, like a beast's stall, to ease their consciences. Of course they had to feed him without dishes. They tried to keep him clothed, but he paraded with his clothes on his arm, all of his clothes. Cruel, it sounds. I suppose they did the best they knew. And just when he was at the height, father and mother married, and mother came, a bride, to help take care of such a creature, and accommodate her young life to his. That was what marrying father meant to her. She had to lie and hear love things made dreadful by his shouts in the night. He'd shout and shout until the strength was shouted out of him, and his voice died down slowly from exhaustion. He'd pull his bars apart like bow and bowstring, and let them go and make them twang until his hands had worn them smooth as any ox-bow. and then he'd crow as if he thought that child's play the only fun he had. I've heard them say, though, they found a way to put a stop to it. He was before my time, I never saw him, but the pen stayed exactly as it was, there in the upper chamber in the L, a sort of catch-all full of attic clutter. I often think of the smooth hickory bars. It got so I would say, you know, half fooling, it's time I took my turn upstairs in jail. Just as you will, till it becomes a habit. No wonder I was glad to get away. Mind you, I waited till Len said the word. I didn't want the blame if things went wrong. I was glad, though, no end, when we moved out, and I looked to be happy, and I was, as I said, for a while. But I don't know. Somehow the change wore out like a prescription, and there's more to it than just window views and living by a lake. I'm past such help. Unless Len took the notion, which he won't, and I won't ask him, it's not sure enough. I suppose I've got to go the road I'm going. Other folks have to, and why shouldn't I? I almost think, if I could do like you, drop everything and live out on the ground. But it might be, come night, I shouldn't like it, or a long rain. I should soon get enough, and be glad of a good roof overhead. I've lain awake thinking of you, I'll warrant, more than you have yourself, some of these nights. The wonder was the tents weren't snatched away from over you as you lay in your beds. I haven't courage for a risk like that. Bless you, of course, you're keeping me from work. But the thing of it is, I need to be kept. There's work enough to do, there's always that. But behind's behind. The worst that you can do is set me back a little more behind. I shan't catch up in this world, anyway. I'd rather you not go, unless you must. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
People by G.K. Chesterton. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Clare in July 2007 in Birmingham, England. Smile at us, pay us, pass us, but do not quite forget, for we are the people of England that never has spoken yet. There is many a fat farmer that drinks less cheerfully. There's many a free French peasant who is richer and sadder than we. There are no folk in the whole world so helpless or so wise. There is hunger in our bellies, there is laughter in our eyes. You laugh at us and love us, both mugs and eyes are wet, only you do not know us, for we have not spoken yet. The fine French kings came over in a flutter of flags and dames. We liked their smiles and battles, but we never could say their names. The blood ran red to Bosworth, and the high French lords went down. There was naught but a naked people under a naked crown. And the eyes of the king's servants turned terribly every way, and the gold of the king's servants rose higher every day. They burnt the homes of the shaven men that had been quaint and kind, till there was no bed in a monk's house, nor food that man could find. The inns of God where no man paid, that were the wall of the weak, the king's servants ate them all, and still we did not speak. And the face of the king's servants grew greater than the king. He tricked them, and they trapped him, and stood round him in a ring. The new grave lords closed round him, that had eaten the abbey's fruits, and the men of the new religion, with their Bibles in their boots. We saw their shoulders moving to menace or discuss, and some were pure, and some were vile, but none took heed of us. We saw the king as they killed him, and his face was proud and pale, and a few men talked of freedom, while England talked of ale. A war that we understood not came over the world and woke Americans, Frenchmen, Irish, but we knew not the things they spoke. They talked about rights and nature and peace and the people's reign, and the squires our masters bade us fight, and never scorned us again. Weak if we be for ever, could none condemn us then. Men called us serfs and drudges, men knew that we were men. In foam and flame at Trafalgar, on Albuera plains, we did and died like lions, to keep ourselves in chains. We lay in living ruins, firing and fearing not the strange fierce face of the Frenchman, who knew for what he fought. And the man who seemed to be more than man, we strained against and broke, and we broke our own rights with him, and still we never spoke. Our path of glory ended, we never heard guns again, but the squire seemed struck in the saddle. He was foolish, as if in pain. He leaned on a staggering lawyer, he clutched a cringing Jew. He was stricken. It may be, after all, he was stricken at Waterloo. Or perhaps the shades of the shaven men, whose spoil is in his house, come back in shining shapes at last, to spoil his last carouse. We only know the last sad squires ride slowly towards the sea, and a new people takes the land, and still it is not we. They have given us into the hands of the new unhappy lords, lords without anger and honour, who dare not carry their swords. They fight by shuffling papers. They have bright, dead, alien eyes. They look at our labour and laughter as a tired man looks at flies, and the load of their loveless pity is worse than the ancient wrongs. Their doors are shut in the evenings, and they know no songs. We hear men speaking for us of new laws, strong and sweet, yet there is no man speaketh as we speak in the street. It may be we shall rise the last, as Frenchmen rose the first. Our wrath come after Russia's wrath, and our wrath be the worst. It may be we are meant to mark with our riot and our rest God's scorn for all men governing. It may be beer is best. But we are the people of England, and we have not spoken yet. Smile at us, pay us, pass us, but do not quite forget. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Woodnotes 1 by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Davis Drake. 1. When the pine tosses its cones to the song of its waterfall tones, who speeds to the woodland walks? To birds and trees who talks? Caesar of his leafy Rome, there the poet is at home. He goes to the riverside. Not hook nor line hath he. He stands in the meadows wide, nor gun nor scythe to see. Sure some god his eye enchants. What he knows nobody wants. In the wood he travels glad, without much fortune had, melancholy without bad. Knowledge this man prizes best seems fantastic to the rest. Pondering shadows, colours, clouds, grass huts and caterpillar shrouds, boughs on which the wild bees settle, tints that spot the violet's petal. Why nature loves the number 5, and why the star form she repeats. Lover of all things alive, wonder at all he meets, wonder chiefly at himself. Who can tell him what he is, or how meet an elf coming the past eternities? 2. And such I knew, a forest seer, a minstrel of the natural year, fortune-teller of the vernal ideas, wise harbinger of spheres and tides, a lover true, who knew by heart each joy the mountain dales impart. It seemed that nature could not raise a plant in any secret place, in quaking bog, on snowy hill, beneath the grass that shades the rill, under the snow, between the rocks, in damp fields known to bird and fox. But he would come in the very hour it opened its virgin bower, as if a sunbeam showed the place, and tell its long descended race. It seemed as if the breezes brought him, it seemed as if the sparrows taught him, and if by secret sign he knew where, in far fields, the orchis grew. Many haps fall in the field, seldom seen by wistful eye, but all her shows did nature yield, to please and win this pilgrim wise. He saw the partridge drum in the woods, he heard the woodcock's evening hymn, he found the tawny thrush's broods, and the shy hawk did wait for him, and others did at distance hear, and guessed within the thicket's gloom was shown to this philosopher, and at his bidding seemed to come. 3. In unplowed main he sought the lumberer's gang, where from 100 lakes young rivers sprang. He trode the unplanted forest floor, whereon the all-seeing sun for ages hath not shone, where feeds the moose and walks the surly bear, and up the tall mast runs the woodpecker. He saw beneath dim aisles in odorous beds the slight Linnea hang its twin-born heads, and blessed the monument of the man of flowers, which breathes his sweet fame through the northern bowers. He heard, when in the grove at intervals with sudden roar the aged pine-tree falls, one crash, the death hymn of the perfect tree, declares the close of its green century. Low lies the plant to whose creation went sweet influence from every element, whose living towers the years conspired to build, whose giddy top the morning loved to gild. Through these green tents, by eldest nature dressed, he roamed, content alike with man and beast. Where darkness found him, he lay glad at night. There the red morning touched him with its light. 3 moons his great heart with a hermit made, so long he roved at will the boundless shade. The timid it concerns to ask their way, and fear that foe in caves and swamps may stray, to make no step until the event is known, and ills to come as evils past bemoan. Not so the wise. No coward watch he keeps to spy what danger on his pathway creeps. Go where he will, the wise man is at home. His hearth the earth, his hall the azure dome. Where his clear spirit leads him, there's his road by God's own light illumined and foreshowed. 4. 'Twas one of the charmed days when the genius of God doth flow. The wind may alter 20 ways, a tempest cannot blow. It may blow north, it still is warm, or south, it still is clear, or east, it smells like a clover farm, or west, no thunder fear. The musing peasant, lowly great, beside the forest water sate. The rope-like pine roots crosswise grow, composed the network of his throne. The wide lake, edged with sand and grass, was burnished to a floor of glass, painted with shadows green and proud, of the tree and of the cloud. He was the heart of all the scene. On him the sun looked more serene. To hill and cloud his face was known. It seemed the likeness of their own. They knew by secret sympathy the public child of earth and sky. "You ask," he said, "what guide me through trackless thickets led. Through thick-stemmed woodlands rough and wide I found the water's bed. The water-courses were my guide. I travelled grateful by their side, or through their channel dry. They led me through the thicket damp. Through brake and fern the beavers camp. Through beds of granite cut my road, and their resistless friendship showed. The falling waters led me. The foodful waters fed me, and brought me to the lowest land, unerring to the ocean's sand. The moss upon the forest bark was pole-star when the night was dark. The purple berries in the wood supplied me necessary food. For nature ever faithful is to such as trust her faithfulness. When the forest shall mislead me, when the night and morning lie, when sea and land refuse to feed me, 'twill be time enough to die. Then will yet my mother yield a pillow in her greenest field, nor the June flowers scorn to cover the clay of their departed lover. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.